Good morning, YouTube. Today we're here in Grand Junction, Colorado. It's a beautiful morning and we're gonna go ahead and kick off our Acura NSX buyer's guide video. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right guys, quick disclaimer. Just like any other car, make sure you do those real basic due diligence. Things like Carfaxes, PPIs, check the body for rust or any damage, and service records. So the things we're going to talk about is going to be NSX related, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay guys, the first thing we're going to be talking about is the front bumper. Now the NSX from the factory sits really low, and you have to think about the road debris and you have to think about other factors where the front bumper is going to get pretty much the brunt of the debris. So these cars being 30 years old, you're going to want to, when you're going to go look at one, you're going to want to make sure that the bumper isn't too badly damaged, but wear and rock chips and things like that are very common in these cars. As a matter of fact, a lot of owners go out there and they have the front bumpers repainted periodically. So with my vehicle, the front bumper was repainted twice and it's almost 30 years. So you're going to want to make sure that you inspect that. Now, one of the things that's going to happen all the time, and I've only owned a car for a week and I've done it almost half a dozen times, is you're going to scrape the bottom of the lip. Yes, the famous red straw. So underneath here, there's going to be a lot of scrapes, and that's because the car sits low. And when the car sits low, anytime you come out of a driveway or something that's got a dip, it's going to cause the scrape. You just want to make sure that the lip is not damaged itself and that it hasn't damaged the front bumper completely. Okay guys, so we know that the front bumper is low and that it takes a lot of debris. But if you look at the aerodynamics of the NSX, you know, like a lot of debris is not only going to hit the front bumper, but it's also going to impact the front windshield. Now, a lot of us, it's real common that people are putting tint in their windshields, and you know, it's important to have a clean windshield. But if your windshield is pitted, you're going to have to replace that. It's going to interfere with your driving and you're not going to like that. So make sure you inspect that. And just to give you an idea how a pitted windshield looks, here's one. All right, so mine was replaced, so we're good on that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. All right, now this is such a common thing that there is third-party companies that have popped up that offer you replacements or offer to repair yours, and that's going to be the side mirrors. Almost every NSX that I looked at had pretty much an issue with the side mirrors, and like as you can see, mine has a little damage here. I don't know the exact issue, if it was a thin layer of paint or if it's just the way that the car sits, but almost every single one I saw had issues with the side mirrors. And again, there's companies out there who you send them in, they repair them because it's such a common issue. So when you go see an NSX and you see that, don't let it deter you, just know it's a common thing. All right guys, I want to talk about how you can find these cars. And I think I'll make a separate video of how I did it step by step, but I want to talk about the websites. Now, one of the main sites for an Acura NSX is nsxprime.com. It's a site where it's got a big, great community that supports each other with modifications and any issues, but they also sell their cars on there as well. So I think it's a good site. Also, I used eBay, Craigslist, Search Tempest, and Cars.com. All right guys, let's go ahead and continue on with the buyer's guide. Okay guys, on my Acura NSX, the only body modification, if you even want to say that, is they did away with the pop-up antenna and installed an S2000 antenna. The reception works well and I think it looks better, but just wanted to point that out. I'm going to be talking about the interior, and these are very, very common issues with the NSX. Again, so common that companies like Science of Speed and other third parties offer you to repair them or replace them. Like literally, they know that's going to happen. And one of those is the window regulators on Acura NSXs. They have this issue that is known as the slow, kind of like it goes down slow and goes back up. Pretty much like the motor is tired. Happens all the time. So you want to make sure you operate your windows and try them out. I looked at the service records for my Acura NSX and long behold, it was replaced. But go look at the car and operate those windows. Make sure it goes down. It's a one-touch button, and make sure it goes up. All right. Okay guys, let's talk about the next point of interest here, and that's going to be the AC control unit. These units themselves go bad, and it's so common that there's companies out there who literally advertise themselves as you taking out the unit, setting it in there, and going back and giving it back to you functioning. Now, when I was looking at NSXs, so many of these sellers were saying, I've repaired my AC control unit, I sent it to some guy named Brian. Brian was brought up a lot. I don't know who he is, but I think it's funny. Who are you, Brian? But these go bad, and it's not cheap to fix it. And not only that, depending on where you live, you want AC, or here in Colorado, you want heat. So make sure that that has been addressed, and make sure that if nobody has addressed it, make sure that there's a possibility that it could go bad. Now, I didn't do research on how it goes bad, but it does. So make sure you're aware of that. Okay, guys, here's another thing. Now, we all love music, and surprisingly, the 1991 Acura NSX has one of the best radio systems and speaker systems I've ever listened to, as far as like from that era, and frankly, it's impressive in today's terms. Now, this is a Bose system, and the interesting fact is that these speakers have individual amps. So each speaker has an individual amp, and that speaker amp combination has some circuitry. They go bad. And I know that Science of Speed offers you to remove that and to send it to them and they'll fix it. Now, I've never talked to Science of Speed. I have no idea who they are, but every time I was looking for a car, everybody was like, oh, this was fixed by Science of Speed or blah, blah, blah. So apparently they're like some people who will help you out with your NSX, but you want to get that fixed. You know, you want to make sure it sounds good. Alright guys, the next thing isn't a common issue, but it's something I recommend that you go and make sure it's there, and that's going to be the owner's manual. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, why is that so important? Well, if you go on eBay, some of these things are going for like $1,000. Don't ask me why, don't ask me the logic behind it, but make sure that they have this. I mean, it came with the car, and you want to have it. And I even got the window sticker, which I think is super cool because it's my first window sticker ever. I've always wanted a window sticker for a car that I've owned. So make sure that this is in the car. Okay guys, we're diving into the meat and potatoes of this video, the mechanical part. The part that a lot of people would put a lot of emphasis on, and I can't disagree. All right, let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start from the front to the back pretty much, and we're going to talk about things that matter to the NSX. Let's dive right in. Okay, we're going to be talking about the ABS unit. Now, in a lot of the ads that I was looking at when I was searching for an NSX, you would randomly encounter ABS light is on, the ABS has been removed, or I removed the fuse from the ABS. Now, there's a lot of, I started researching it a little bit, and they said that the first generation ABS units in like the early NSXs, they were just kind of new, and they came with their gremlins. So a lot of people just remove the ABS because they like to drive a car without an ABS, or a faulty ABS as well. And then a lot of people upgrade these ABS units to later NSX ABS units that were pretty much revised, or the gremlins were fixed in them. So just make sure that when you're looking at a vehicle that you ask about the ABS unit. This is an actual really common thing with the NSXs. Now, this isn't an issue, but this is something that the NSX came with, and you're going to want it to come when you buy one. And that's going to be the spare tire. It's going to be in the front, and also your toolkit and compressor. Let's go see it. It's in the back. All right, your toolkit and compressor is back here. So it's one of those things that it'd be nice for you to get it if you bought an NSX. Okay, here's a quick tip. Now, the radiators on these cars are about 30 years old, and if it's the original one, most likely you're gonna have to replace it sooner or later. Now, when I was looking at cars for sale, I saw a lot of people either replace it with an OEM one or an aftermarket one. If you see that, just make sure that you know that it's pretty common. Okay, the Acura NSX originally came with an R12 refrigerant. Now, mine has been retrofitted to an R134A refrigerant, and that is almost a necessity, almost mandatory thing you need to do to these cars. Now, R12 refrigerant is getting phased out. It's not really supported. It was an older refrigerant. The R134A refrigerant, it's got a lot more benefits, and it's also more EPA compliant. Now, just make sure that you understand that you're going to want to do this, or it's already been done. A lot of the ads stated it was done. If you buy a car that's not done, you're going to have to do this to the car. All right, guys, we're going to be talking about the clutch right now. Now, we can't show you a picture of the clutch, so I'm just going to have to talk about it. All right, guys, there's two types of clutch owners, and that's going to be your aftermarket guys and your original guys. And I'm talking about NSX owners here. Now, the original clutch seems to last between 30 to 60,000 miles. Of course, it varies many factors, where you live, how you drive it, etc., etc. But the thing about it, though, is that the aftermarket clutches, they're great. A lot of people go that route for forced induction. It's a fantastic option. The only thing is that they're a lot noisier. That's what a lot of people have stated, and that's something that you should be aware of. The original clutch itself seems to be great. Seems like to be a great replacement. Just know that it's a pretty pricey thing to do, just like any other clutch. So just be aware of that. And when you're looking at a car, you want to make sure that it's been done within that time frame, and also that you go inspect how the clutch feels when you're doing your test drive. But know that if you have to replace the clutch, it's going to cost you money. And if somebody says that the clutch is replaced, always have it verified with an invoice or a service record. Always make sure that you could call in, or that you could check that that place is an actual valid shop, and make sure that it was actually done. So always make sure that's done, because that's something with a manual car you're going to want to make sure that you don't have to worry about down the road. We're going to be talking about the timing belt. And on the Acura NSX, I think it's an important topic. Now, the service manual states that you need to replace the timing belt in 72 months, 6 years, or 90,000 miles. Now, if you take in consideration with the Acura NSX, a lot of these cars are not going to hit 90,000 miles in 6 years. It's just part of the nature of the vehicle. Now, one of the issues you will come about when you're trying to buy one is that a seller will tell you that the timing belt was replaced 2,000 miles ago. But when you ask the seller how long ago the timing belt was done, they'll tell you 15 years ago. Now, that meets the fail requirement, in my opinion, and that you need to do the timing belt. But they will state that it only has 2,000 miles and that it's good to go. So you're going to have to take that into consideration. And if it was me, I would have the timing belt replaced if it does not meet the time requirement. Now, one of the things about the timing belt service on these vehicles, and the reason why it can be pricey, just like any other vehicle, of course, is that it's a while you're there type of service. Meaning that while you're replacing the timing belt, replace the water pump, do the tensioner, and other items. So that bill racks up. And I believe the bill that I have from the service records that I received with this car, it was close to the $3,000, $4,000 range because of everything that they did as far as out of service. Now, they replaced gaskets, spark plugs, they adjusted the valves, they did a water pump, they did a lot of services to rack up a bill like that. But it's part of those things that you want to make sure. And one last thing about a timing belt service record is when the owner gives you a record, make sure that it's an actual reputable place and that it's actually somewhere that you could verify. I did have an owner who said his buddy did the timing belt service. I'm sorry, I'm sure you like your own, I'm sure your buddy's good at working at cars, but I want to have the peace of mind that it was done somewhere and that I could verify that service was done. So make sure you check those things and you verify those timing belt service records and the timing belt intervals and change intervals. All right, guys, let's talk about the transmission snap ring issue / dilemma. Now, when I was looking at cars, I didn't have any idea about a snap ring thing, but I kept on reading about, like, here's my transmission ID number or model number, and I was like, snap ring issue has been addressed, snap ring issue has not been addressed. And one of the main things that I saw about that was like, okay, well, what's going on? And what happened was that a snap ring issue, when it fails, it actually really hurts your transmission, like big time. Like, we're talking about replacement transmission. So the years that were affected with the transmission, the snap ring issues, typically in 1992. But, you know, a lot of people still like to verify their engine, their transmission codes to make sure that it hasn't been affected. So if you're looking at a 92, make sure that the transmission is not within that range, that model number does not fall into the snap ring issue, because you will have to address that. If you want to learn more about it, just type it in and you'll see a lot of things on NSX Prime about it, but make sure you verify that snap ring issue. All right, guys, that wraps it up. But I know I forgot something. I'm human, I'm sorry. But you know what? The great thing about it is you guys. You guys are an awesome community. You guys love cars. I know that there's some NSX owners out there, and if I forgot something, leave it down in the comments below to help out a future NSX owner. Now guys, I love this car. It's one of the best cars I've ever driven. I couldn't be any happier at all. And like always guys, if you like this video, hit the like button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. It really helps us out. It supports us. It makes us pretty pumped up about it. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.